we're going to end this afternoon on something a little bit different. I think you'll find it interesting, more than interesting, but anyway, Chuck Brickley started writing haiku in the early 60s, but didn't get a feel for it until the 70s after settling down in rural British Columbia. In 79, Bob Spice, the editor of Modern Haiku, invited Chuck to be his associate editor, a post he held for 6 years. A dual citizen, Chuck now resides near his hometown, San Francisco, but is holding on to his house in Canada. Yay. It's only minutes from Thacker Marsh, a magical place you will hear about shortly. In recent years, he has been the featured poet at the Seebeck Haiku Getaway, a judge for the Vancouver Cherry Blossom Festival contest, and a panelist for the Touchstone Award for individual poems. As second vice president of Haiku Society of America, he coordinates all 6 of the HSA international contests. One of his Haibun was nominated for a pushcart prize, another for the Saunders Small Fiction Award, and his multi-award winning book of haiku, Earthshine, is in its 4th printing, and it can be found at chuckbrickley.com. Christopher Harold's haiku have been honored worldwide. Most recently, his work was featured along with Pulitzer Prize winning journalist William Dietrich and renowned wood engraver Richard Wagner in the fine press book Cascadia. It was published by Nawakam Press, winner of the Carl Herzog Award of Excellence. Christopher is the co-founder of the Heron's Nest Haiku Journal. In addition to being a haiku poet, Christopher is the author of 3 science fiction novels. The first, Ghosts of the Shalom, is now available on Amazon Books in hardcover, paperback, or as an ebook. The sequel, A Far Cry, is scheduled for release by the end of this year. Christopher's most recent novel, Halfway There with the T crossed out, so it reads Halfway Here, is due for publication by summer of next year. He is now on his 4th novel, a collection of short stories, and a series of children's books. So no grass growing under either of these guys. Now, the 2 of them together, Chris and Chuck, have been bouncing haiku stories and revelations off each other for years. Out of their kinship grew the idea of a tag team Haibun reading, which they first performed at the Haiku Canada Weekend conference in Vancouver, 2019. Chris read the prose of his Haibun, Chuck the haiku. Then vice versa, Chuck read the prose of his Haibun, and Chris read the haiku. They will reprise this collaboration with a mostly new set of Haibun and with a few added elements inspired by the video platform. So, fellas, whenever you're ready.
A wilderness road. But first, I must walk through more than a mile of clear cut. Sadness, anger, vying for dominance. Finally, old growth, a forest of pines and Douglas fir. Where a wooden bridge spans a stream, there's a narrow path leading down to the water's edge through an understory of ferns.
Crumpled beer cans. The scent of creosote mixed with evergreen.
The mountain's bones are exposed here. Giant boulders with mossy tops. For countless years, they've resisted the pounding waters of spring. It's winter now. Pale sunlight filters through a network of leafless maple branches. The stream is narrow enough to step across.
Nearly deaf, but those beautiful songs of crows.
Water striders stroke this way and that. Their shadows pursue them. A tiny circle of light at the tip of each leg.
Surface tension. The rumble of a logging truck from that other world. Christopher Harold is my brother in arms. In one of my emails several years ago, Chris thought I had included a Haibun. When I answered that it wasn't, he wrote, "Well, it could be." That's how my first Haibun came to be, and here it is. Chief Willard Wells, almost always drunk, often on vanilla extract, would knock on my log cabin door at any hour of the day or night. Sometimes he had a black garbage bag full of freshly netted salmon to sell for booze money. Other times he wanted a ride into town or back out past the marsh and down to his shack by the Fraser River. On one of those latter occasions, the chief, riding shotgun in my 54 Mercury truck, glanced at the stack of books between us on the seat. "Books?" he exclaimed, running a hand through his black hair. "Books? The only book you need to read, son, is the great book of the bush." He said this with a sweep of his arm, indicating the marsh just off the road and the Douglas fir-covered mountains rising straight up all around us in the late afternoon sunlight. Slowing down, I could see Mount Hope looming over its reflection, surrounded by cattails in the marsh. Its peak, still capped with snow, glowed amidst a cluster of shimmering white clouds. I pulled to the side of the road and shut off the engine. Chief Will rolled down his window. I rolled down mine. A breeze filled the truck with the scent of black cottonwood buds. The chief pulled out a brown bag bottle, took a swig, and passed it to me.
Old growth forest. Each call of the raven deeper in. The road, a single lane through a sea of tall evergreens, becomes 2 lanes, then 4, morphing into a highway, a tangled network that strains vehicles towards countless destinations. There are fewer and fewer trees. It's sobering to consider the increased weight of concrete, overpasses, underpasses, clover leaves. We follow signs to the airport, buses, shuttles, taxis, the parking building. We wheel our suitcases to an elevator, an escalator, a ticket counter, the security checkpoint. Moving walkways slide past shops, bars, restrooms, numbered gates. More concrete, metal, glass, plastic. Mother Nature gone, left behind, but not forgotten. We stop for lunch at a coffee shop. 6 logs stripped of bark have been cut lengthwise in half and bolted to a wall. Spread behind them is the painted mural of a country landscape. Rolling hills, woods, farms, cattle grazing. Our table is positioned directly in front of one of those faux trees. My chair faces it. Noise engulfs us as we unwrap the plastic from our sandwiches. Voices from nearby tables, the clatter of dishes and silverware, the paging of passengers, announcements of arrivals and departures. The clamor presses against my skin, fills my brain.
Boarding call. The black eye of a knothole stares back at me. I love reading Chris's haiku and hearing Chris read mine while we're doing Haibun. It helps give each one its own character. I like to think of these haiku as something akin to a Greek chorus, a natural chorus running through the drama, weighing in on our lives. Your wife's wasting her time. I regret telling Doran I'm on my way to meet Kim at the clinic. Worse, she's setting her karma back lifetimes. Our neighbor continues, adjusting his pace to keep up with mine. Yours too, lifetimes. Where you headed, Doran? Well, the credit union, but like I was saying, that baby you mentioned, the one born with severe defects, your wife's trying to help, but it's his karma. Nothing can be done. And the more she interferes, the more her karma gets entangled with his. The more ghosts collide.
Dark cumulus. Pigeons settle on a gum-speckled corner.
The credit union is bustling. Members going in and out, oblivious to the young hoodie sitting cross-legged at the entrance. Doran, waving off my ken of the karmic principle, leans into the revolving glass door and disappears. The hoodie, who may be older than I first thought, casts a handful of seed.
Sunburst. Iridescent rock doves, pecking, pecking.
It's his eyes, the hoodies. Watery from age or from bearing witness to our age? I add to the scattering of coins in his bowl. Blessings, brother. The deep resonance of his voice gives me pause.
A stray beak mines a sidewalk crack. What others missed.
Someone inside is more deserving of your blessings, I say to the old man, bowing. Someone who lives to help others. I simply pass his gift on. Who might this be, brother? I nod toward the revolving door just now opening. Their eyes meet.
Leaves a whirl. A bird comes to feed from his hand.
It starts to rain. When I reach the clinic, Kim's already outside opening her umbrella. We head home down the wet, darkening streets lined with bare trees. I take her hand. She sighs and begins to tell me about her day.
Eaves still dripping. A mourning dove coos. It's freezing tonight. I've come to the mom and pop grocery store down the hill from where I live. There's a busker there, sitting on a stool. Probably in his 30s, hair long, dark, tangled, clothes shabby and torn. He wears gloves with the fingertips cut off and holds a cello between his legs. The instrument's body no longer shines and is covered with scratches. Looks are deceiving.
Ice-sparkled sidewalk, the upside-down hat overflowing cash. The photo behind me is of my beloved mother-in-law, Dodi, a first-generation Italian. She passed away 20 years ago. Annie Dopo is Italian for years later. As for you, there was a time I wish my daughter had never met you. I prayed you would join the army and disappear from our lives. When the two of you moved away to another country, do you know how much that hurt? Give me your hand. You have always treated my daughter with respect. You gave us the most beautiful grandchildren I could ever hope for. You turned out to be a good father. Take care of them. That's all. I have nothing more to say. Please go, all of you. Don't cry, not yet. I'm tired. I just need a little lie down.
A tear stirred into my sofrito, her old wooden spoon. Once it began, there was rarely a night it didn't happen. That guttural yowling, the thump, thump, thumping down the stairs from our third-floor living room. Then silence. Night after night, the same ritual. Morning after morning, we'd find the body. Sometimes face up, sometimes down, sometimes in the entryway or on my study floor. But most often, just outside our bedroom door.
Another day, and my cat is still missing. The cries of gulls.
In the evening, I used to call to him from the front door. He always came, most times right away. More often, though, at his own leisurely pace. The thumping and yowling would begin no more than a few minutes after I climbed into bed. A few days had passed since I last called his name. I've walked all over their neighborhood, posted his picture on telephone poles and bulletin boards. I've searched the nearby woods.
Broad daylight, a coyote trots down the middle of our street.
A predator. I'm told it's the most logical reason, or that he simply did what so many creatures do when they get old. Go away from home to die. Logic doesn't seem to help. How is it that time ticks ceaselessly on despite this feeling of finality?
Shoveling earth onto his teddy bear. its wide open eyes. Okay, I'd like to switch things up here a little bit. Anyone knows me knows I like a good laugh, even at my own expense. So be it. A while back, a poet told me that Haibun has shifted away from the narrative form. Well, having never been in fashion ever, I thought, why worry now? Oh God, I howled in our honeymoon bed. 10 minutes earlier, we were simply lying there enjoying a quiet breather. That's when she caught me by surprise, grabbing my right foot. I reached for hers, but she'd already pulled her knees up in defense. Game on. Soon we were twisted around each other, rolling over and back, laughing so hard that when I stiffened from the sudden sharp pain, my shouts were dismissed as a strategic ploy. Time out, I yelled. I'm serious, stop. On top now, she pinned my arms to the mattress. After all those times during our courtship that she'd asked me to stop, and I had, here she was swinging her hair across my face. Even later, as she drove to the ER, effusive with apologies, she couldn't disguise the glee in her giggles. Surely those who were on duty that night remember the kid with the mustache walking gingerly up to the admissions desk, and the girl with long blonde hair who did all the talking. Yes, we're on our honeymoon, but at the time we were only having one of our, honestly, it was just a little, tickle fight. Is that what you call it? Mused one of the nurses, setting off a chorus of woohoos, wisecracks, and much hilarity all around. The doctor turned to me and winked. Who won?
The crack of my rib. Summer stars. Being in sync with my pal Chuck, this seemed to be an ideal time to be unfashionable myself. So I'll share a memory with you. My high school reunion, my first one, 10-year one. I have a friend I've known since 4th grade. We're still in touch. Once in high school, Mike came into his own. When he entered a room, everyone would turn to look at him. He's that charismatic, and later became your quintessential Irish bartender. Mike has an unabashed sense of humor, one that often triggers disbelief. In other words, he's a shameless entertainer. The band that played that evening was putting down their instruments to take a break when the micer, that's what we all called him, leaped on the stage and whispered something to the lead guitarist. The band picked up their instruments again and started the song Louie Louie. My friend Mike sang lead. If you can call what he did singing. Laughter was everywhere. But then what did he do? He pointed at me and called me up to sit in on drums, reminding the crowd that I was in a band with Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead. Taken completely by surprise, someone had to shove me before I gave in and climbed up on stage. We played Roll Over Beethoven. Again, the micer at the mic. But that isn't the half of it. As we neared the end of the song, at last, he turned to me and yelled, "Drum solo! Drum solo!" I freaked out. I'm not a solo kind of guy. But did I have a choice? The crowd actually got into it, and I don't think they were just being polite. It's now 46 years later, and I've yet to pay the micer back for that one.
Cliff's edge with the lake 30 feet down. My friends dare. Ponderous? Tug interjects, unbelting his tools by the crew cab. There you go again, using a word nobody's ever heard of. Ponderous? Since 5 this morning, a dozen of us have been yakking away while planting Douglas fir seedlings up and down a steep slash-burn slope, and are, to a man, to a woman, ornery, tired, and sweaty. Our shift may be done, but Tug isn't. I bet you just made up that word, he asserts as we join the others heading toward a stream in the shade. Go on, hippie, tell us. What the hell does ponderous mean? A male pine tree.
Snow runoff. We leave our 12-pack to the bear. Dawn is already brightening the sky as I walk down to the beach and sit under a coconut palm to meditate. A few locals are already on the shore, searching for things of possible interest that tourists left behind the day before. When the sun rises behind me, the palm I'm sitting under casts a long shadow. Slowly it shrinks across the sand, away from the arrhythmic beat of breaking waves. In the distance, the slopes of Molokai and Lanai evolve from red to pale green. People with surfboards arrive. Only a few at first, since it's still quite early. They pass by quietly. Seems they don't want to disturb me. After all, their sport is also a form of meditation. The number of shorebirds is increased. Some distance out from the beach, a barely submerged coral reef roughens the ocean into paled green froth. More people come down to wander the strand, talking in loud voices as they walk right in front of me. They don't glance in my direction. It's as if I'm invisible. Or maybe they're just ignoring the weird guy sitting in lotus position. Ready for breakfast, I end my zazen by silently reciting the morning sutra. Vast is the robe of liberation, a field beyond form and emptiness. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, saving all sentient beings. For many years, the last line of this sutra stymied me. How could one person possibly save all sentient beings? A guy's appeared, not far down the beach. Long, tangled hair, hands in his pockets, arms covered with tats. He stands facing the ocean. Hell's Angels is embroidered under the Harley-Davidson patch on the back of his worn Levi vest. He turns around. As he does, it's obvious that I'm not invisible to him. Walking straight up to me, he crosses his arms and poses a perfectly timed question. Think you're going to save the world doing that? And without pause for thought, I hear myself answer, yeah, I'm saving it for me. Yeah, right. He shuffles away, shaking his shaggy head. I open my notebook, take out a pen, pause.
Sunny beach. The grain of sand on my page has a shadow. This next Haibun goes out to all my Canadian friends here today. Turn off the engine, I said. The Mountie irked that he had to ask me a second time. Already did, I answered, fumbling through my wallet for a driver's license. Yeah? Then what's that sound? Kim put a hand on my shoulder, motioned with her eyes toward the back of our truck. Of course, the reason why I was letting everyone pass us on the highway. Do you mean the bees? I asked. What? That stack of white drawers behind me? Got 50,000 bees today for our garden. Sound riled up, do they? Faster than you can say, I'm out of here, the Mountie was.
Tire squeal. Sunflowers turning with the sun. Well, as you can tell, Chuck has absolutely no sense of humor. So I guess I'll continue along the meditative path. A Japanese tea garden. I stand before a humongous bronze statue of Shakyamuni Buddha. Due to a sudden thunderstorm, customers have all but abandoned the nearby tea house. There are no longer any distracting voices. The garden paths are deserted too. Smooth gray flagstones, glossed with rain. The only sound between the rumbles of thunder is a gentle drumming on my umbrella. A plum petal drifts down, sticks to the opaque surface, pressed into focus by the weight of raindrops. A second petal settles, this one onto the Buddha's left hand, the one resting palm up in his lap. A gnarled pine grows beside the statue, trunk slowly darkening from the rainfall. As I watch, a favorite Zen story comes to mind. Not sure when the incident was to have taken place, if indeed it did, but the truth of the message makes the factuality of the account superfluous.
A young monk in training had been sitting in a temple garden, directly in front of a likeness of the Buddha. He'd been there for the better part of 2 days when the temple's abbot passed by and noticed the devout intensity of the monk's zazen. So he approached him and stood there a while, gazing at the bronze figures seated on a low stone pedestal. All of a sudden, the abbot hawked up a wad of phlegm and spat on the statue's face. For a moment, there was silence while the incredulous monk regathered his composure. He then gasped, "Chisei, sacrilege," and demanded his teacher explain why he'd done such an unthinkable thing. Of course, the answer came immediately. Where can you spit and not hit Buddha?
The storm passes. I close my umbrella and linger a bit longer to admire the pine. The breeze sets loose another flurry of plum petals, enough to cancel my reverie. Wandering further into the garden on the uneven path of puddles, I can feel Buddha's eyes on my back.
A broad stepping stone. I wait for the snail to cross. Just before dawn, a boy reaches the edge of town and steps into the wild chaparral. He's not allowed to play there. Hobos, broken glass, coyotes. He walks further in, rubbing his arms to stay warm. Shrubs brush against his jeans. In the growing light, dark, twisted shapes become manzanitas. A bird sings. The boy comes to a small clearing, stops. A jackrabbit. Its quick breaths hang in the cold air, each joining others to form a small cloud above its nose. Suddenly, it hops through the cloud and disappears.
A runaway takes the long way home. Scent of wild sage.
The Cascade Trail opens to an old logging road in the late afternoon sunlight. At last, a way to get back down to the highway before dark. Hitch a ride into town, hoof it to my cabin. A sharp breeze tightens my skin. Shadows of the mountains to the west cross the valley and begin their ascent of slopes to the east. A circling vulture looms larger with each turn. Just down the road, a rock moves. A snowshoe hare. It wiggles its nose and hops into the understory.
A book plate mushroom in my used Lewis Carroll. Flickering candlelight.
A California sagebush sparkles with dew. The boy rubs a leaf between forefinger and thumb, smells it, and closes his eyes. I open mine.
There's been word of a remote cave in the upper reaches of this mountain. As I begin my hike to find it, clouds fill the sky. The air is frigid. A gust of wind sweeps down the canyon so that I have to lean forward to brace myself. Fallen leaves swirl up, then settle back to the ground. In the distance, thunder echoes down the canyon. A crow swoops from a Douglas fir, doesn't stop to caw, but glances at me as it flaps overhead and disappears around the trail where it curves out of sight. Soon I round the bend too and startle a buck drinking from a shallow pool. For what seems a long time, we stare at each other. A raindrop strikes my wrist, so I begin to walk again. The canyon narrows, trail and creek bed merge, every step crunching gravel. The cave, a black hole framed between two giant boulders. It draws me into the base of a cliff. Once inside, the only sounds are the slow, rhythmic drips of water splattering onto a rock, and the occasional rustle of bat wings. My flashlight guides me to a nearly flat ledge at the back of the cavern. I sit, pull my legs up into full lotus, turn off the light.
Breathing in the Stone Age, the fist of thought opens. Once a child lingered on this old footbridge for hours, mesmerized by the grand procession of great white clouds across the sky. No angels with harps, no fiery dragons, clouds, voluminous clusters scudding toward the mountains, wisps trailing off into the azure.
Years gone by, the morning star on my lash.
When the child's imagination uprooted from earth, how long since usurped by the world?
Sandbar. A shadow sweeps away the sparkles.
A dark cumulus, risen from behind the cypresses, swaying on the far shore. Swiftly it swells, roiling into black billows, streaked with shimmering gray veil. A gust rushes through willows, leafing out along the shoal, rattling last year's tules. The deep rock of a heron rasps the spine. Nostrils flare, a sharp scent arousing primordial anamnesis. Eyes well, senses all a blend. Tangle.
Sunburst. A ring on the lake. Rings.
Thank you very much, fellas. You hit just about the right mark, too.
That
Uh,
was fun.
Anybody, are you open to questions? Do you
Oh,
want-
of course not.
No, eh? Are you willing to field them yourself, or do you want me to screen them? Anybody that has a question can unmute yourself or a comment.
Two words, first class. First class.
Wow, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I wish it's mainstream on TV, so youth and kids can listen. So soothing and very imaginative. How long have you been working on this? Both.
Well, my first
Oh.
response would be the individual haiku or us putting this together.
Putting this together.
I'd say about a month, off and on. Right, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. Though a couple of the Haibun, a few anyway, I think were written before that. It was just a matter of finding the way to link them together, and so that there would be a coherence of some sort. In this case, roads came into it quite a lot. Yeah, it was really fun to do, and I think we should start a TV series, don't you? A Haibun
Yeah, it's-
series.
It's it's actually very soothing and pleasant to listen, and how everything was weaving in, and I think our kids and youth need such inspiration to get them thinking these, channels to get their imaginations out.
Well, I would
Wonderful.
say
Inspiration's great. Thank you.
I'd say definitely a podcast series, if not television.
How about
Yes, yeah.
the real Haibun poets of LA or something? We could move it around. All of us could jump in at different locations. There'd be 10 different reality shows that would crop up from it.
Yeah, with different
There's a buck
stars,
to
you
be
guys
made
could be
here.
all in it too. I mean, we could run into people that are other haiku poets, and stumble into each other in some way. Well, Chuck and I are actually thinking about starting a renku Haibun pretty soon here. We have to figure out what the rules are and everything, but link and shift, of course, will be all important, and having certain things come up at certain times. And I don't know, it's not going to be 100 links, maybe a kasen.
Nice. Thank you.
And all sorts of positive comments in the chat if you want to take a look through there.
I haven't looked at them yet.
But they're going by so fast, it's hard for me to focus on them, let alone read them.
I see a couple raised hands.
Well, then
Your sound design was just marvelous. It almost creates like a Pavlovian response when you ring that bell. I just, lean forward to hear the haiku. How did you come up with that?
Well, I was thinking of when somebody speaks, there's a nanosecond for the camera or the screen to change to the speaker. So that I thought that might interfere with our reading. So if we did use the bell to do the heavy lifting, the bell to switch the screens, and then we can begin talking. And also I was thinking of how I've been to several haiku readings, the haiku poets of Northern California, where there's like a triangle calling everybody's attention to, and it just gives me kind of a mystical feeling, it gives me a kind of an instant contact high, if you will.
In a million years ago, Alan Watts used this technique in the 50s, early 60s with the bell.
He did. I watched him. I watched Alan. The first haiku I heard read aloud was by him on his TV show in the early 60s.
A triangle would have been a little bit difficult to negotiate. Excuse me. So what we have here, and I don't know if you can see this. My wife had bought these for our dog. Supposedly he's supposed to go up to these and hit it when he wants to go out. He never did. So Chuck and I became the dogs.
Pavlov indeed.
Old dogs, new tricks.
well, and as Jerome said, he had the rest of us trained pretty much by the time you were finished. We'll wait for the bell.
So I see Rita's hand raised.
Here's
Yes.
the temple bell. Let's see if I can.
Yes.
I don't know.
The singing ball. And in fact, I thought you were using a tincture, like I use it when I teach mindfulness, meditation and so on. So I just wanted to tell you that this was a real treat, a real gift. And I felt personally was like translated, and like my spirit was being rocked. And so you took me really in a kind of a different dimension. And I want to thank you so much because it has been a real gift. So thank you.
That feels really good. Thank you, because that was what we hoped, for your imaginations to just take a trip with ours and go where yours takes you. So share, that's what we're doing when we're sharing our haiku or our tanka or anything else anyway, is we have an experience so profound that we write about it. And if we do it well, then other people can not necessarily stand in our shoes exactly, but be off in their own imagination of where they are. So this is a great group of people, and I've been orbiting at some distance for the last 10 years or so because of the novels I've been writing, but my heart has always been here, and haiku defines what I do otherwise. So there's so many old friends that I know are around right in front of me probably, that I haven't seen for a long time, and so many of you people that I haven't met that would be really wonderful friends too. So one day. Thank you.
Thank you. I was with you, especially in the cave one. Thank you.
Any more questions? Well, I'd like to read these comments.
Yes, go ahead. Judson Evans wrote, wonderful sense of woven voices and haiku comradeship. Beautiful way to end. Sean O'Connor said, wonderful. Kat Lehman said, Chuck and Chris, thank you for this wonderful treat and bringing these Haibun to life. Agnes Savage said, absolutely beautiful. Peter Fisher, magnificent, thank you. Maggie Chula, a roller coaster of emotions and memories. What a ride. Great job, you two. Deanna Bassist, that was mesmerizing, fantastic. Meredith Ackroyd, beautiful work. The emotional range of these pieces together is breathtaking. What else we got here? Shirley Mark, very well done. The bell was a little harsh though. Michael Henry Lee, thank you so much. Chuck and Chris, superb. Saretta Martin, Chuck and Christopher, so captivating, thank you. Sarah Metzler, beautiful and captivating. Sigrid Saradan, captivating, thank you, Chuck and Chris. All kinds of this stuff. It's going to go to your head. Michael Railing, good stuff all around.
Ignatius, if I may,
Sure.
I don't know how many folks realize, I mean, Haiku Senryu is meant to be spoken.
Yeah.
A lot of us forget this, but I think for me, what was this marvelous treat is not only the spoken word of Haiku Senryu, but the Haibun itself. I mean, some of your Haibun was, some of the prose was magnificent. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Very kind words indeed.
I'd like to say you've set us on a journey as we depart this great conference. Something to take with us.
Thank you.
I would like to say a few last words, if I may. Chris and I would like to thank everyone who joined us tonight, especially those of you who stayed. And Jay Friedenberg, Jay, everything you've done to make this conference happen, I know from behind the scenes, the work you put into it. As well, everyone else at HSA who participated, especially Ignatius Fay. No way Chris and I could have seen our ideas become reality without the time and considerable Zoom skills Ignatius was gracious enough to share with us. Ignatius was gracious. I like that. Thank you, Ignatius. And finally, the deepest of bows to my good friend, my partner in chimes. You know him, you love him, Mr. Christopher Harold. It's great seeing him out and about again, eh?
Wow, thank you so much, Chuck. You know, you guys, Chuck basically said everything I was going to say too, so I'm not going to repeat him. But yeah, he and I have been jamming ever since we first met. It's like he's the only brother not the only brother I've got, but really. I don't have brothers and sisters, but Chuck just feels like it. And yeah, what HSA, it just suddenly I feel like my orbit is being drawn back in again. So thank you, everybody. Jay, everything you do, it's nourishing haiku around the world. And can I call you Iggy?
Yes, you may.
Oh, really? Cool. That's great.
That's the one.
I sort of held back for a while, but okay, hey, Iggy, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to get this together because Zooming I think I was pretty much land-bound, and now I can Zoom without throwing up out of anxiety.
Yeah.